chapters. We're going to jump around a little bit. We're actually going back to chapter 9. Okay, so if you looked at Edmodo, if you look ahead, the PowerPoint's there. Chapter 9 assignment has been, or chapter 9 vocab assignment has been assigned on there, along with 9.1 study guide, which you guys will get today. We're doing this because it's talking about mitosis. So this is cellular reproduction. So this is how our cells reproduce and make more of themselves. Ideally, we would have gone over this for chapter 12. We just didn't have enough time. Okay? It's really weird. Matt's freshman year, we got through that. Chapter 12, a lot of chapters. And ever since then, I haven't been able to get through it. I don't know why. The semester just seems like it's shorter. Maybe if you had a longer freshman year than you guys would normally have. But we're starting off, and then after that, we're jumping directly to chapter 32. I know it's a big jump from 9 to 32, but it's going to start talking about organ systems. And we'll have 3 different chapters, and they'll go fairly quickly, talk about organ systems, and they will prepare us for dissection of the frog. Are we excited about that? Is that what we're looking forward to? Yes, no. Some people are squeamish. Okay, so that's going to prepare us for dissection of the frog. That's probably going to happen right when we come back from spring break. Okay? And then after that, then instead of talking about mitosis, we will talk about meiosis, which is sexual reproduction. Because it deals with the sperm and the egg. But we're going to see a lot of the similar terms. Alright, there's going to be a lot of stages that are very similar and alike. However, there's just going to be more in meiosis. There's going to be a couple more steps. Okay? So, hopefully you're ready to go. We're not tired, right? How many of us slept in every day over break? Okay, I normally get up and I go to...
What's your definition of sleeping in? Is it going to sleep at 5:30 in the morning and sleeping until 5:30 in the afternoon? So
I would say that's you're working nights and you sleep during the day. Yeah. And I wouldn't say that's sleeping. I would just say that's sleeping all throughout the day. Do you have something against sunlight, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, at least you're honest. All right. What, Parker? Well, I'm with you in that category. I hardly slept. So, if we have good New Year's, too? Huh? Yes? No? Did we do much? Or did you do what I did and just stay at home and watch The Office until it was in college Netflix? I know, I'm a little sad about that. It is what it is, though. Okay. So cellular growth, that's what we're going to talk about today for the first section. Then Thursday we'll come back, not Thursday, Friday we'll come back and we'll talk about mitosis and cytokinesis. So we'll talk about the first step of what's called the cell cycle. Okay, the cell cycle is the whole process of cellular replication. Mitosis is just a stage of that. And then when we come back next Tuesday, we'll finish up section 3. We'll talk about cell cycle regulation. We'll talk about how there are various checkpoints throughout this process. And those checkpoints are looking for cancer. Right? Looking for any type of mutations, anything that's gone wrong with the replication process. So that way, if something did go wrong, it will kick it out and it will kill that cell before it can make more. Right? Because that's how cancers form. It's a replication of an abnormal cell that did not replicate correctly. Okay? So first up, we have what's called the ratio of the surface area to volume. Okay, over time, cells will grow. All right, cells will grow because one, the cell stays small, doesn't change in size, and replicates. Okay, it's dividing in half, so it's going to be half the size. So we need the cell to grow a little bit. Okay, now cells will grow eventually. All right, so what if I keep lowering this balloon? What's going to happen? It's going to continue to grow. It will pop eventually if I get to this point. Okay? The cell needs to grow a little bit so it can replicate. Now, once it hits a certain point, it's going to do one of two things. One, it'll just stop, which if it stops and doesn't do anything else, it just stays there. Okay, it's not going to function as properly, and we'll talk about why. Or it's going to do number 2. It's going to divide. So those are the two things it's either going to do. It's just going to stop growing, or it's going to divide. Because if it continues to grow, as Parker's already pointed out, it will pop. Okay, so this is a Walmart balloon. Yesterday it got really big. I'm kind of surprised. getting a little out of breath here.
Just tie it and step on it.
What?
Just tie it and step on it.
Yeah, that's okay. Man, you guys ever seen a balloon that big? Just a normal one anyways. There we go. As it blows everywhere and spreads my germs everywhere. I don't have COVID at all. You see other pieces, don't touch it, I'll pick it up later on. Okay, but if it keeps growing, you get the idea, right? It's going to burst. So it's going to stop before it does that. It's either just going to stop growing or it's going to divide. Now the reason why we want it to divide is because it's not going to function as well. Okay? The smaller your cells are, the more properly they're going to function. Okay? So Leighton, we have stuff that we fill in throughout our notes. So it's starting right there. So if a cell, right, as it grows, its volume is going to increase much more than the surface area. That's why it can burst. Right? So we need to make sure that it's either going to stop growing or it's going to divide. If it stays a large size, it's going to have some difficulties in supplying nutrients throughout that entire cell because it's going to have more distance to travel in that cell. Or it's going to have problems getting rid of waste. Alright. Do we travel anywhere for break? Anybody? Go anywhere? Yes? No? Nobody? Nobody traveled? It's okay, I didn't travel either. All my family's here. Alright, did you travel a little bit? Kansas City, that's not bad. Okay, you drove obviously, right? You don't really want to fly on a plane, that'd be kind of expensive just to go 2 hours. Some people do it though. Yesterday's biology class, as they went anywhere, as they flew or they drove, okay? What takes a short amount of time? Fly or drive? Flying, obviously, right? Okay, so if you fly, you still have the same distance, it's just going to go quicker, and that's just like a smaller cell. Alright, it's like flying, it's going to take less time to do things. But if you drive, it's going to take longer, obviously, right? Might be a little bit cheaper, alright, but it's going to take more time for that to work. So that's just like a larger cell. It's like driving from one place to the other. It takes more time, okay? So, substances, they will continue to move by diffusion. Remember, they move in and out by diffusion. Some things can't just pass in and out of the cell, right? Because it's a phospholipid bilayer. What are lipids? Fats, okay? So, water, does water and fat mix? No, so some things that are water soluble don't go through there, so they need that diffusion of those motor proteins to do that, okay? So if you have to go larger distances, it's slow and inefficient. So if the cell's too large, it's going to be slow and inefficient. Whereas if it's a smaller cell, things are going to move throughout a lot better. Okay, so think about driving to a place, it's going to take longer instead of flying, it's going to take a short amount of time. Anybody not like airplanes, not like to fly? Okay. Anybody not been on an airplane? It's fun. I think it's a lot of fun. The takeoff might get you a little bit, but once you get past that, you're fine. Yeah. It also affects our cell communication. Okay? So we have signal proteins inside of our cells that will move throughout to limit that size. Alright, so those proteins, they will help. Now, sometimes our proteins can fail us. Some people are deficient in certain proteins, they can be deficient in this signal protein that will limit the cell size, so those can get too large. Right? But it will also affect the ability of cells to communicate instructions with units. So for instance, what's the brain of the cell? You guys remember? Yeah, the nucleus. Okay? Nucleus tells the cell what it's going to do. So if it's too large, things are spread out. The nucleus is going to have a hard time communicating with the other organelles, like telling the mitochondria to do what? Create power. What type of power? What kind of energy? ATP. Good. Okay, ATP. That chemical energy. So it might have a harder time communicating that and telling the cell, hey, the body needs this. We need you to make a lot more of it right now. Right? So you guys start to see the picture that the smaller the cell, the more efficient it's gonna be, okay? All right, I'm glad I'm drilling that back in. Okay, so we have what's called the cell cycle. All right, we have the cell cycle, and it is the process of starting with one cell and creating a new one that's going to be identical. All the cells in your body, whether it's a cell that's in your skin, cell that's in your stomach, cell that's in your mouth, okay, they are all identical. They obviously have different jobs. So remember that certain genes are turned on, others are turned off. Okay, they have specific jobs, but they're all identical. Okay, cell division. One, it's going to prevent that cell from becoming too large. So again, it'll either just stop growing or it's going to divide. If I keep saying that, it's probably going to be some questions on your study guide about those. Okay. All right, but it's also going to help you to grow and heal and repair injuries. Okay. Now, obviously, hopefully you guys are still growing, right? I really hope I'm still growing. I want to be a little bit taller, but it's very unlikely. But healing certain injuries. Okay. So, for instance, athletes in here might not think about this. Okay, Nat, Cass, Storm, they run cross country. Okay, when they run, they're breaking down the muscles in their legs, but their body will eventually repair it and make it stronger so they can work harder the next time. When they do that, that is a type of injury. You might not think it's a type of injury, but your body recognizes it as that. And so what it does is it goes in, it fixes it, and makes it better, so that way you won't have that problem the next time, unless you create more force, or more of a workout, more intensity. Okay? So your body's kind of recognizing that as that. And so your cells are going to replicate, to heal, and to make more muscle cells in that instance. Okay, so the cell cycle, it's that process of growing and dividing, growing and dividing. And there's going to be 3 steps to that. That first one's got 3 stages of its own. That second one's got 4. And that last one's just by itself. Okay, we've already talked about one. Talked about mitosis. Alright, so let's take a look at what the other 2 are going to be. Okay, so that first one's going to be interphase. Okay, it's going to be interphase. It's going to take the longest out of all 3. Okay, because that's where we're going to make more organelles. Okay, because we've talked about what's running the cell again? The nucleus. Okay, if we make another cell and it doesn't have a nucleus, is that cell going to function? No, because it tells the cell what it's going to do, right? So we got to make a new nucleus. We got to make new mitochondria, we got to make new organelles of everything, so that new cell's got everything it needs, right? It's going to make new DNA, and that's where we're going to see growth in that cell. And that next stage is mitosis, where we see that division starting to take place. Okay, and we'll go into more detail about that on Friday. And the same with cytokinesis. Okay, so cytokinesis, cyto, what do you think cyto is standing for? It's something in the cell. Cytoplasm, good. Okay, so kinesis means a reaction or a splitting. So we're basically splitting that cytoplasm in half and dividing it and making 2 new cells. That's what the cytokinesis is doing. We'll talk about more on Friday. Okay.